Hi, I'm Dahlia Lithwick, and this is a special edition of Amicus, Slate's podcast about the courts and the law and the U.S. Supreme Court. We are bringing you this extra episode with news of the first real clash between Donald Trump's DOJ agenda and the highest court in the land on Wednesday morning in a brief order. The Supreme Court rejected an emergency application from the Trump administration to junk a lower court order forcing the State Department to immediately pay out $2 billion owed to contractors for foreign aid work they had already completed. The decision was, slightly alarmingly, 5-4, with Chief Justice John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett joining the court's liberal wing to side with the two challengers to the sudden freeze of foreign aid spending. Joining me to chew over both the brief order and the hail fellow well met greeting between Donald Trump and, quote, his Chief Justice at Tuesday night's joint session of Congress is Slate's very own Mark Joseph Stern. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Dahlia.
I'm just going to note I'm in a hotel room in Arizona and there's a baby screaming in the room next door. I would ordinarily not flag this, except if you hear that sound, that's actually all of us. I think she speaks for us all.
Especially Sam Alito today, who's never whined more like a baby than in this dissent.
That baby is channeling Sam Alito. Before we get to this, I think, very consequential first loss for Donald Trump, I think we need to start with the audio of Donald Trump after his remarks personally thanking the Chief Justice on Tuesday evening.
Thank you again. Thank you again. Won't forget.
And that's the sound of President Trump patting the Chief Justice on his shoulder, thanking him and assuring him he will not forget. So, Mark, we have this awkward moment. It's horrifying. I think Elena Kagan's face, much like the baby in the hotel room next door, speaks for us all. They waited to release this blockbuster order until after Donald Trump gave his speech. Yeah?
I absolutely think so. I think even though Alito clearly took some time to write this furious dissent, and he loves to drag out the drama by writing long dissents, I think it's pretty clear that this should have been ready by Tuesday. I mean, the court has been preparing it since at least Friday. And I think, for optics purposes, the majority didn't want to put it out right before some of them went to sit in front of Trump at his address before Congress. And so they waited. And the optics are in some ways even weirder now, because you had Donald Trump basically saying, hey, thanks, Chief, for all you did to make me president again. I mean, that's certainly how I interpret his comment. And then the chief turns around and signs on to, this extraordinary order that will require the Trump administration to pay out $2 billion that it doesn't want to. That is a sick burn, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that the chief is either laughing quietly to himself in his chambers or like shivering in a corner, worried that Trump is going to turn on him and use that immunity decision to the fullest of his powers against the man who wrote it.
Yeah, I sort of love the poetic irony of Donald Trump saying to the chief, I won't forget it. And the chief being like, it's forgotten. Move on. So listen, this order is a big deal. Early on Wednesday morning, as you say, we get this very short order in a pair of cases: AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition v. Department of State and Global Health Council v. Trump. The plaintiffs are a group of international nonprofits, businesses, and other groups that provide public health services, hunger relief investigations, other foreign assistance all around the globe. And they had challenged this Trump administration freeze of virtually all foreign aid funding that had already been appropriated by Congress, including, and we've talked about this on the show, Mark, money for programs that people literally relied on around the world in order to survive. The case was assigned to Judge Amir Ali, a Biden appointee. He ruled for the plaintiffs on February 13th. He ordered the government to resume the funding. And since mid-February, we've been witnessing the Trump administration dodging and weaving around that order to reinstate payments. We've talked about this before on the show, Mark, and sort of outer limits of what Judge Ali could do and his very openly expressed frustration with how the case was playing out.
Yeah, I mean, just to recap, Judge Ali ordered the government to resume these payments. The government refused. It claimed that it had gone over all of the relevant contracts and discovered magical language that allowed them to cancel them willy-nilly and even refuse to pay for services already rendered. The plaintiffs came in and asked for Judge Ali to hold the Trump administration in contempt of court. Judge Ali did not go that far, but he issued then like a series of increasingly frustrated orders saying, hey, I issued my decision. You're sort of supposed to abide by it. It finally reached a boiling point that led the Trump administration to run to the higher courts and say, we don't want to do this. We don't want to pay. This is outrageous. How dare Judge Ali hold our feet to the fire and make us actually spend the money Congress appropriated. And so I think it was clear that this was not going to get resolved in Judge Ali's courtroom. The Supreme Court was going to have to step in one way or another. And of course, whenever you're relying on this Supreme Court to force the Trump administration to follow the law, you really got to have your fingers crossed. That is a tricky bet to place. And I think that Judge Ali stood strong, knowing he was in the right, that he had the law and the facts on his side. And that turned out to be the correct bet. It's pretty disturbing that it only paid off by, a single vote, as we'll discuss. But this was one of the most brazen acts of intransigence, if not outright defiance, by the government in the face of a court order that we have seen in a very long time.
Slate Plus members can access my conversation with Mark in full right now. You can subscribe to Slate Plus directly from the Amicus show page on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or visit slate.com/Amicus Plus to get access wherever you listen. We'll be back with your regularly scheduled Amicus episode on Saturday morning. Until then, take good care and hang on in there.